Okay, hey everybody. It's what's today? August 21st. Okay. I won't go into my spiel about how late in the year it is, but it's late in the year, guys. um excuse me. So, here we are. This is the follow-up what I didn't get to cover on last week's call, which is I want to talk about how powerful our story is and how we can have so many different stories and how we really need to perfect our own stories. But before we do that, a couple of kind of housekeeping things. Um, Tony has a couple of new groups coming up. So there's going to be the regular group next month, which is going to start September 3rd, and that's going to be the Team Icon, whatever it's going to be called, the equivalent of this month's Summer Meltdown. If you are getting people in that group, you have to get them in. You have to get the majority of your people in by Monday, the week before, which is basically a week from yesterday. Otherwise, Tony's not going to guarantee that you're going to get anybody in because I think he said on a call that like he spent like 40 hours putting this group together this month. And then people on like Saturday were like, hey, I have 10 people to add. And he's like, nope. So get your people in, like invite today, get people in on Monday, like spend this whole week inviting. There are also two more groups, which are going to be really cool. This is a group geared towards families and kids. So he's got two groups, two age groups for kids, and it's going to be a double time group for both. So the first one is going to be ages like 8 to 12, I think, and then 13 to 18. So he's calling them like something like the jungle and then the varsity group. And it's for families with kids. And so if you go to Team Icon, he's got some Insta stories that he shared, like what he did. Basically, I just saved the images, I posted them to my Instagram, and then I covered up his poll with my own poll. And I've got a couple of people interested, but basically this is going to be kids getting to engage in the group with their parents and to check in. And it's like kids and parents do this together. Kids are going to keep the parents accountable. They're going to, be excited to do this. And it's going to be based around double time. So this is going to be a really cool one too, because this is like really this is like the heart of Team Beachbody that Carl spoke about at Summit, which is bringing fitness and health into the home. And he spoke a lot about it last year at Summit too, where like that's the goal of this company. It's like Netflix for nutrition at home, Netflix for workouts at home. It's where you can have your shake at home. It's where you can have accountability on your phone anywhere you go with your coach, with your challenge groups on Facebook, on Instagram. And you bring everything into the most convenient location and get everybody excited about it. So I'm really excited about those. Obviously, I don't have kids between the ages of 8 and 18, but I'm going to be putting people in the group. I'm not going to be necessarily like doing the workouts and participating, but I'll have people in there and I'm going to be doing my coach thing. So that's that. Again, reminder, if you want to be in any of these groups, get the majority of your people in by Monday of next week. Otherwise, no guarantees. Okay, so the power of the story. Last weekend, in the same day, I basically had my brain rattled that how important storytelling is. So the first one, so in Melissa's Emerald Mining group, she shared a Rachel Hollis video, and there was something that Rachel Hollis said about learning to share your story. No, it was almost, I think it was like over a week ago because it was a weekday. So in the same day, she talked about it, and then out of nowhere, because I'm in Keith Callahan's group, Tribe 2.0, and Keith came on, and he did a live video on the team page, and he was talking about storytelling as well. And I always have admired Keith's ability to be a good storyteller. He's a master storyteller. I want to be like him. He is amazing. So when he got on, like he didn't even really say much about like he told a short story, but it reminded me like how much I love listening to Keith, just because he like weaves these really engaging stories, and like I love it. And then like later that day I was watching a Rachel Hollis video, and she said some really, really important things about like what stories do for people and how you can use your story in all these different ways. And so I kind of want to break down what I learned from Rachel Hollis. Like the Keith Callahan thing is just kind of a reminder that, you know, I love stories, and that kind of like drove it home in my mind that this is really important. But really what I want to share is how we can use our story and how important it is to use our story. So think back to like when you were first sort of noticing what your coach was doing on social media. And I know for me, so Christy Whiffen is my coach. And I remember seeing her posts, and she kept like, it didn't matter how many times I'd read the same story that she shared, I would gobble it up. It did not matter if it was the exact same story, but I loved hearing her story. Like I knew that, you know, she'd lost both of her parents to cancer. You know, she used to be very overweight. She, you know, she's had, I don't know what kind of a cancer removed from her forehead. She, you know, all of these little parts of her life, I would read them all the time. I would read the story start to finish because I loved hearing her story, because it was kind of this formula of like, here's the shit that I went through. This is how I dealt with it. And this is what I did to make it better. And that was the thing that drew me into her, because there were certain parts of her story that I really related to, mostly because like we're moms in the same moms group, but like, you know, history of, you know, skin cancer in the family. It's these things that made me feel like I could relate to her. And then on top of that, like this was when we were pregnant. I was laying on the couch, like bouncing a quesadilla on my stomach, and she was drinking a shake and working out. And I'm like, okay, like if she can do this, I can do this later. Like maybe not right now because I'm pregnant. But so when the key point though was that she had a different story for each thing that she talked about. And so that's the thing that Rachel Hollis was talking about. What Rachel Hollis said was, you have all of these different stories in your life that make up who you are. And you have different aspects of things that you want to share with your audience. And what's going to make this work so well is you pick one story for, like for us, one product or one aspect of a product. So I have a couple of stories, so I'll share like what I mean. So Shakeology gives you energy is one aspect of a product. My story for that is the first week that I started drinking Shakeology, I was sitting on the couch with my husband, and previously, like we used to sit on the couch, and come like 8:30, I would literally fall asleep on the couch, and then he'd have to like roll me off to bed. And I was grouchy, and I was lame, and I was boring, and like it was terrible. And so within the first week that I started drinking Shakeology, we were sitting there on the couch, and it was like 9:30 at night, and he looked over at me and he's like, "What is wrong with you?" He's like, "Are you like delirious from lack of sleep?" He's like, "Why are you so happy? Why are you still awake? And what have you done with my wife?" And I share that story because that I didn't really even notice, but hearing him say that to me, I was like, wow, this stuff is this. And that was the only thing I changed at that point. But I felt like, you know, the energy from it. And so that's the story that I use. The others, you know, I have a story about digestion because like for a full year after I had Garrett, I had tremendously terrible hemorrhoids. Within a month after I started drinking Shakeology, they went away, and I haven't had one since. So I have all of these different stories as they apply to me. So we all, you know, we need to go through the list of like everything incredible that Beachbody offers, you know, the community, the coaching community, the accountability groups, Shakeology, all of the different things that it does for our bodies, the workouts, and come up with our own stories and plug them in, like almost like a formula, and memorize those stories for yourself. And then when somebody says, oh man, like I've been having trouble with my digestion, you can go, ha, I have a story. Because people relate to stories. People don't relate to science. Like, yes, there are a bazillion ingredients in Shakeology, like ginkgo helps with hemorrhoids. Like, nobody cares. Nobody cares that there's some plant out there that will help some people. They want to hear how it's helped you and how it's helped me and how it's helped Mary Jo over there. They don't care about the facts. They care about the stories that you have and what it's done for you in your life, and they want to be able to relate to you. So that's why we need to come up with our stories. So the other really important thing about stories is we need to become storytellers. Like, it's a great start to be able to say, okay, here's my story, but we need to make it engaging. And the best way to do that is to tell your story again and 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 again. You know, write it down. Rachel Hollis has a really good like system that she goes through. Basically, like, she comes up with her story and she writes it out word for word, line for line. And then she condenses it into 5 sentences. And then for each sentence, she comes up with like a bullet point. And then each bullet point, she replaces the whole sentence with just one word. And basically it just like jogs her memory. So she knows that she has like 5 points that she talks about in each story. And then she just does it again and again and again and again. And by doing that, she gets really good at telling her story. And she refines it and she makes it really exactly how she wants it. And the more she does it, the better she gets, and the better she gets, the more the words, the better of a storyteller she becomes. And that's how we learn to tell our story. This is something that freaked me out for a long time because I never thought that I was a storyteller. Because when I was growing up, I always kind of was lame at it. And I never thought that I would be the kind of person who would be able, first of all, that I even had a story to share, because like, what, I'm the girl next door, basically. I'm the same as everybody else, was what I had in my mind. But by thinking about how, you know, Beachbody, Shakeology, Team Beachbody, Beachbody on Demand changed my life in X, Y, and Z ways, there are specifics. And the specifics are what you want to focus on, because that's going to attract your tribe to you, because they're going to relate to those specifics from your story. So like for me and Christy, I related to the fact that, you know, she has fair skin. She's a freckly, redheaded girl. She goes to the dermatologist and she had skin cancer removed because my mom had a skin cancer, squamous cell carcinoma removed. My grandfather died from complications from skin cancer. I relate to that. And you know, there are a million other things. Like, you're looking for people, you want to give people these little tidbits of information so they relate to you. So maybe, you know, Amber, yours is, you know, you're a Star Wars nerd and you have some story about that. Or, you know, what, you're a twin mom. I mean, we all have our stories. Like, we're not just, that's the beauty of like life and being human, is everybody is so different. And we can relate to so many other people because we have one thing in common with each of these hundreds of people that we want to connect with. And so that's why it's so important to really kind of hone in on what those details are and flesh them out and weave a story about them that people want to relate to you about. So, I mean, pick a couple of things, because once you start thinking about this, it can get really overwhelming. You can be like, oh my gosh, like, I have so many things, which again, for me at the beginning, I didn't think I did. But when you sit down and you think about who you are, all the experiences you've been through. You know, maybe you're a divorced mom and maybe you have, you know, a child from another marriage, and like, you know, you're married again, and, you know, you are on your health journey because X, Y, and Z. Like, that is a story. Those are people that you can relate to. Um, Everything about you is individually unique, and you can share that with other people, and you can connect with other people in that way. So don't limit yourself just to thinking, okay, well, I live in Las Vegas. Like, okay, you know, I have twins. Okay. So like, I don't know. I mean, don't limit yourself. Like, for a long time I limited myself kind of to like, well, I like to garden and I have dogs, like I have a son. Like, those are very, very broad and generic, and there are a lot of people out there like that. But I have Australian cattle dogs, and they're psychotic. Um, I'm a weekend gardener, and I like to do really lazy gardening. And I have an almost 3-year-old who my doctor told me that he might have a photographic memory. Like, get specific, 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 specific. Um, Tell people about the gross things. Like, I went to the dentist this morning and it was fine, but like a few minutes before the end of my appointment, the dentist was sitting there and he's like, have you had any like burning or tingling on your tongue? And I'm like, no, like my tongue is fine. He's like, oh, well, you have like a patch of fungus on your tongue. And I'm like, I'll probably share that at some point, but not today. So that's what makes us special. And that's what makes people laugh. And that's what makes people relate to us, because we're real people. So I also enjoy the dentist, as you can all read from my story today, because like I nap in my chair. It's great. Not everybody does. This is what storytelling is about. It's the funny things in life, and, you know, it's the hard things. And it's, you know, when you want to like string your child up by their toes and leave them for the freaking crows to eat because they're driving you crazy. But come up with, you know, make a list. Come up with, so here's your homework. It's homework for this week. Get a pen and paper, write it down. Come up with, okay, make a list of, you could even go to the back office and like go to the Shakeology fact sheet. Or, you know, pick something. And so you have, you know, like, this is what Shakeology does for you. It gives you energy. It helps with your digestion. It helps with weight loss. It helps with, you know, get all the facts of Shakeology and write those down in one column. And then next to it, write down how you have experienced that. And then I want you to come up with a story for 2 different things.
Can I interrupt for 2 seconds?
Yes.
I would maybe extend that a little further and pick at least 2 other aspects of Beachbody, because I really think there's a gold mine of information from what have the workouts done for you, and Energize for me would be
absolutely, yeah.
Or Recover. I could technically go for all 4 of those topics, because I think the Recover has done more for me than, like, profoundly more for me than Energize. But I wouldn't just limit it to necessarily just Shakeology, because I think there's a lot to be.
Absolutely. If you want to go above and beyond, yeah. But if you're new, like, don't be overwhelmed, because there is a lot out there.
Oh,
you could spend a week doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So to start, I want you definitely to do 2 things that Shakeology has done for you. And then, you know, if you've been doing this for a while, if you have experience with all of the products, if you have a story about all these different things, by all means, knock yourself out. Do as many as you possibly can. So yes, Amber, you should do all the stories because you've been doing this for a while. You know, and I need to do all the stories. But again, like, if you're newer, if you are restarting your business, if you are, you know, a brand new coach watching this, pick 2 things that Shakeology is known for and how you have a story that connects with those, and write those down. And then once you once you do, just in our chat thread here, you don't have to write out your whole story, but just list out what you've come up with. So like Shakeology gives me energy, and this is the story point, which is like, a short little blurb about it, just for accountability. So that is what I wanted to talk about on storytelling. There are a couple of people, like, I feel like I learned to tell stories just by watching other coaches. That's why the National Wake Up Call is so powerful, like listening to the National Wake Up Call, watching trainings, watching other coaches speak, even in Beachbody Champions. But hearing people's stories is so powerful. And the best way to learn to tell your own story is to listen to other coaches. Like I mentioned Keith Callahan. I love listening to him. I will listen to him all day long and twice on Sunday. He's the best storyteller. He actually has a podcast. I don't know if you guys know that he has a podcast. It's called, he's got two. Let me find them. One is just kind of like a general like life mentoring podcast. And the other one is, it's called All About Beachbody Coaching with Keith Callahan. Sorry. All About Beachbody Coaching with Keith Callahan. And then his other one is called The Business of Life Podcast with Keith Callahan. I don't know why my thing says he only has one episode. He's got a bunch of episodes. Episode 164. So he's done a lot. So listen to like somebody that you appreciate. Like Melanie Mitro is a really good storyteller. She's got a podcast too. It's called the Women Inspiring Women. Where'd it go? Yeah, the Women Inspiring Women podcast. Just find coaches who, you search YouTube and listen to people talk on YouTube. That's a great way to listen to people's stories, listen to how they tell their stories, listen to how they speak, listen to how they, how they share. And if you connect with it and you like the way that they talk, then chances are the people who are connecting with you are going to like that too. And so you can use aspects of that to learn how to tell your own story. So, find people who you want to tell stories like. That's how I learned, I guess. That's how I don't feel like, I do. Every time I go live on Facebook, I feel like I want to like curl up in a ball and die and vomit. But I'm okay with it because I've learned who I want to sound like, and I kind of made myself do it. So that's all I have. Amber, anything else you want to add? Okay, cool. Well, everybody catching the replay, don't forget to do your homework and post in the chat thread. And next week will be another surprise. Ta-da! Okay, because I will plan it on Monday. All right, everybody, have an awesome day, week, night, whenever you watch this, and we'll see you next week.